All right, guys. Haven't done a live in a while. Miss talking to you guys. And today we're going to talk about a topic that's popular in the news. And I'm sure a lot of people have been following R. Kelly, whether it be for good or bad reasons. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. The newest development in his case that's actually dealing with his case that's actually happening in New York. So he has a case happening in Illinois and he's having a case in New York as well. And we're going to talk about the newest news. I know there's been like a cancel culture for R. Kelly. Some of us grew up on his songs and music. He had like gospel music. He had R&B music. He was on everybody's songs, and then it took a turn for the worse when he was discovered to be engaging in inappropriate, allegedly. That's the lawyer in me. Allegedly dealing with underage girls, and he was arrested. I think it was in 2018. But this recent case that's in New York happened after that, and so we're going to talk about what happened with his lawyers, who were his lawyers before. He had some new lawyers, and what's happening, what's going on now. What happens when your lawyer wants to say deuces? Can they do that? We're going to talk about all that tonight. I'm going to give people a couple of minutes to come in, and then we're going to get right into Robert Sylvester Kelly and his current legal drama. And I kind of want to know, are you guys, I know some people like, oh, I'm not listening to R. Kelly's music anymore. It's almost like the Bill Cosby thing. Like, are you still going to watch the Cosby Show? Like, because you had such a nostalgia attached to that show, but then he was found to have, done those horrific things to those women over all the years. Are you not watching Cosby Show or anything related to Cosby anymore? Are you watching R. Kelly? Are you listening to R. Kelly music anymore? Or are you like, no, I can't even stand to hear his voice anymore? And he hasn't, unlike Bill Cosby, who's been adjudicated and found guilty and is currently serving a jail sentence. R. Kelly, on the other hand, is right now awaiting trial. He's trying to get out early because of COVID, but he's awaiting trial. So he actually hasn't been adjudicated guilty yet. So that's why I said allegedly. And so are you going to still listen to his music in the meantime until he's found officially guilty of the crimes against him? I know his living girlfriends kind of abandoned him. People who were on his side before have kind of said like, no, I'm not messing with you anymore. But what about his fans? Does he have diehard fans still that are like, I don't care what they say about him? I know back in the day, he was dating Aaliyah. I think he was married to her at one point too. So, and she was underage at the time. So it kind of makes the case against him that he would do that in the future not so great. And I'm like, who's going to be in this jury pool that they're picking from to judge R. Kelly when he finally does get to trial? The trial I think that they're talking about is happening in August. The racketeering trial is going to happen in August. And I don't know when the other trial in Chicago is going to happen, but his lawyers who were supposed to be representing him for the New York trial are the ones that said, I'm out. But we're going to get into it because I'm reading an article about it, and things may not always be what they seem. So let's get into it, and people will come in as they come in. But I'll read to you the article that says what happened, and then you can kind of share what you think is the deal. What do you think is really happening? So what it says is, this is a Daily News article, and it says 2 of R. Kelly's lawyers for his soon-to-start blockbuster Brooklyn trial have asked to step away, and one told the Daily News is because 2 new attorneys on the case have no federal court experience, aren't willing to put in the work, and are effing over the disgraced R&B star. So the attorneys that are quitting or asked to withdraw, their names are Stephen Greenberg and Michael Leonard. They filed a letter to the Brooklyn Federal Court. Judge Ann Donnelly Monday evening requested to be relieved from the case, giving no specific reasons for their departure. But Greenberg was frank about why he wanted to be out with a phone call to the Daily News on Tuesday, citing friction with the new lawyers, Thomas Farinella and Nicole Becker, who lack federal trial experience. So they're basically saying, like, we're not messing with y'all. Y'all know what y'all doing. We don't want our name associated with that. Quote, unfortunately, it appears that Mr. Kelly over time has not made the best decisions. and I fear he's doing that now. But it's not my problem, I guess. I wish him the best. I hope he wins this case, Greenberg said. You sort of want to take the high road, but they're just really effing him over, these two. We don't want to be with people who don't have any experience and don't want to do the work, he added. So what's happening is in the two lawyers that are withdrawing, they're deciding they don't want to represent him in this federal case in New York, and they have additional. So he almost has like a dream team, almost like O.J. Simpson. He has like multiple lawyers who are representing him, and so two of the newer lawyers are kind of too green, apparently, according to Greenberg. They're too green, and he's like, I don't want to deal with them. But the two new lawyers are saying that that's not how it happened. R. Kelly fired them. Like, you can't quit, you fired. So I think it begs the question, like, can attorneys quit right before your trial? Like, it leaves you in a vulnerable position. Can they quit? And the judge is going to hear the motion and say that whether they can withdraw or not, because sometimes it can prejudice the defendant too much if they quit so close to trial, especially if they've been representing him from the beginning. The judge is going to decide whether it's appropriate for the lawyers to quit. Like, they can't just withdraw. It's like, no, you were hired to represent this defendant. You have to stay in. And sometimes judges do make those decisions because they know that the defendant will be too harshly prejudiced by them bowing out of the case. But sometimes they say, okay, you can leave, and then he'll still have other attorneys. But as Greenberg already mentioned, these two other attorneys are not as experienced as he feels like they should be, representing him with a case where a lot is at stake. So the case in New York is actually a racketeering case. And a racketeering case is basically, they feel like he ran an enterprise that recruited young women, underage women, to engage in inappropriate actions with him. He basically he had a whole team of people that supposedly their job was to seek out underage girls to operate to R. Kelly's pleasure. So racketeering is actually defined as a genre of organized crime in which the perpetrator set up a coercive, fraudulent, extortionary, or otherwise illegal coordinated scheme or operation, a racket, to repeatedly or consistently collect money or other profit. So in this case, that's what he's on. That's what he's going to be on trial for in August in New York, in the Brooklyn federal court, and the attorneys are trying to decide. So I think that it begs the question that, whether, and the attorneys, they say they want to withdraw from the case in New York, and they want to draw from the case in Illinois, even though they've always been representing him since he was arrested in 2018. They want to withdraw from both of those cases. It's like, we don't mess with you. We don't get along with the other attorneys. And it kind of gives you a behind the scenes look at how other attorneys interact with one another. Sometimes you think like everything's all gravy, like we have the dream team, but then the dream team can't even get along. And they're supposed to be coming together for a common goal, which is to represent R. Kelly for this alleged crime or alleged crimes that he's committing, and they can't even get it together. So I don't know if R. Kelly actually fired these other attorneys or hired these other new attorneys to replace the first ones. I don't know, but I know that it would be in his best interest to have someone who is most skilled. And if it's true that they don't have any federal court experience, that could possibly end up bad for him. He has his liberty on the line. When you're in criminal court, your liberty is on the line. It's not just, cough up some money, whereas you're in civil court, you just cough up some money and that'll be the end of it. Criminal court, your liberty is at stake. He can be going away for a long period of time for the New York charges, racketeering, and for underage engaging in sexual activity with underage girls in Illinois. So what do you guys think? Is anybody, I want to know, I don't know who we have viewers from, but anybody in the New York area, Illinois area, maybe you'll end up on the jury pool. Like, have you guys heard anything? Have you guys canceled R. Kelly? I want to know because it's going to be interesting to see who they pick for the jury, people who have a certain stance on things and whether he can get a fair trial in either state because he's such a popular figure. And our people already have their mind made up. Like, it's either one or the other. Like, I think this is ridiculous. Let him out. I love him. He's a good music maker. Or like, no, he did it. I believe it. Lock him up. I don't want to even hear evidence. Like, you want to have a jury pool that actually is going to be considered of the evidence and not have their mind made up before they even walk into the courtroom. So what do you guys think? I want to comment in the chat because I really want to know kind of what people's different opinions are. I know as a lawyer, I always say alleged, like R. Kelly allegedly did this because he hasn't been adjudicated guilty. And you say alleged until the person is adjudicated guilty. And then, I mean, who knows what might even happen? He may end up plead guilty. I doubt it. I know his previous living girlfriend, she basically turned on him. So she probably is going to be testifying for the state against him when it does come down to trial. But it's interesting to see who's going to be there. The racketeering charge, so I don't know if who's representing the other people that supposedly were part of this whole scheme to recruit these underage girls for his pleasure. But I'm sure that, they don't have as many high-priced lawyers as he has. And I think they actually also, I remember when this first came out, when he was first arrested in 2018, they were saying that they access his account and he didn't have no money. So I'm wondering where he's getting money to pay for this dream team of lawyers. Whereas like in the O.J. Simpson case, we know where he was getting his money from. He was an former NFL player. He still had some residuals from that income. But where's R. Kelly getting money to pay this? Like maybe they quickly say like, you ain't got enough money to pay me. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that would not be a reason for the judge to let the attorneys off because they said, oh, he's not paying us enough. I think they've worked this long that the judge might say, no, you have to stay. But lawyers have a professional code of conduct that they have to abide by. And when the judge is considering whether the attorney has met this professional code of conduct, they're going to say, well, what have you done? Is there basically you and your client can't get along, so you can't properly represent them? That could be a valid reason to let the attorney withdraw. If they feel like they can't get along with their client, like, well, I can't represent someone who is not agreeable. So therefore, judge, I need to withdraw. So that may be the case. I don't know. We're going to find out soon. But I think it's interesting that that is so close to trial and he wants to get out, and then people were saying like, oh, he's going to get effed over. And it's interesting the choice of words they used in that particular article. They said that he's made some bad choices. I'm like, that would be an understatement. And I'm like, you might want to stop talking. Another article that, excuse me. Another article that said that they were leaving. They said, oh, they were effing him over. They basically, I think that they think that R. Kelly, you might be getting the short end of the stick. And sorry, but we can't be a part of this thing. They have the reputation to protect. And it kind of reminded me of the George Floyd trial where the attorneys were, like, how can you represent? They say, like, how can you represent someone who is accused of doing something so horrendous? And as a lawyer, your job is that they're entitled to counsel, and your job is to represent them. Whether I would say that I wouldn't even ask them whether they did this. So you can honestly say, I don't know if they did it, but my job is to represent them, to represent them to the best of my ability, and to give them the fair defense. And so the state's job is to prove their case. The defense doesn't have to prove anything. The state's job is to prove that the person that's accused of the crime did it, and the defense can put on evidence, or they cannot. They could just point to the fact that the state didn't prove they didn't prove their case. They can do that, or they can put up a whole new case in opposition to it. But at the end of the day, R. Kelly and anybody else who's accused of a crime is entitled to counsel. It doesn't have to be fancy counsel like, he may want to pay for. He can get, a public defender who's not going to have as much time as someone who you pay specifically to do it. But you'll be entitled to some kind of counsel, because whenever your liberty is at stake, whenever you're in danger of having your liberty taken from you via jail or whatever place, you have to be entitled to due process before you're deprived of your liberty, and through the process of having an attorney. So, guys, let me know what you guys think about this whole R. Kelly situation. I know it's been going on forever, and I think COVID kind of pushed things back as far as trials were concerned. But now we're dealing kind of with what's going to happen with this first trial in New York for the racketeering, then what's going to happen with the case in Illinois? Are they going to let him out? I doubt it, because they like, you didn't catch COVID and die by now. He's probably going to stay in jail until his trial. But then what's going to happen after one trial is finished? How will that impact the Illinois trial? We don't know. But who do we have on the stream tonight? I know we have some faithful viewers, and we have some people that are popping in, but I want to know who's on the stream. And if you guys have any questions about like what lawyers do in regards to their representation of counsel and how it impacts this whole R. Kelly case, let's chat in the chat session. It was one more thing I wanted to highlight. Let me bring it up real quick. Oh, I'm waiting for you guys. Okay, so this case is set for whether the attorneys can withdraw. It's set for tomorrow, Wednesday, June 9th at 11 a.m. to decide whether she's going to let them withdraw. But the other two attorneys that are on the case, Tom Farinella and Nicole Becker, said in the joint statement to CNN, the only comment we have at this time is that Mr. Kelly terminated both lawyers prior to filing their motion. So, and then R. Kelly has refused to actually talk to his attorney that said they want to be fired. So we'll see what happens with him. Who do we have? Okay, we have got Rajan from New Jersey. Hey, Rajan, what you think about this case? I'm putting you on the spot. I don't know if you have one way or another have any opinions about this R. Kelly case. Have you already canceled him? Like, are you still free to listen to his music? I know his ex-wife she was like on her show, Andrea Lee. She's like a dancer, and nobody even knew he was married for all those years. He got 3 kids. Nobody even knew he was married. And then she pops up on this show like she's an ex Hollywood wives or whatever. She pops up on the show and she's like a really good choreographer, and she's been that way, and all this stuff is coming out, and she's like, oh, she was never privy to it. But it's kind of hard to like to be married to somebody and not know that this was part of their history, because I think she married him the year after he was divorced from Aaliyah. So I think it's a little suspect. I mean, she said he was like abusive to her, and that's why she ended up leaving the marriage. But I'm like, so I don't know if that, all these things probably not going to come into play in the trial, because that'll be too prejudicial against R. Kelly. But we'll see how this goes. What did Rajan say? I listen to the music regardless of the situation he has. So that's what some people are saying. Like, they're like, oh, I'm not holding against him. It's almost, so I can see both parts of it, because some people are like, oh, separate the musician from the actual person who's doing the alleged crimes. And then so it begged the question where, like, it was the Bill Cosby situation, like, oh, but he's still a good producer, he's still a good artist. What about Chris Brown when that whole Rihanna case came up? Like, do we separate the artist from the actual person who was being accused? And some people are like, no, if you're an abuser, you're an abuser. I'm not listening to none of your stuff. You're not giving none of my money, blah, blah, blah. And then other people are like, well, no, you can't dispute the fact that he's talented. Like, let him do him. And if he gets accused of this, I mean, if he gets convicted of this other thing, then I have nothing to do with it. But I think I would say that he even had, like I was mentioning earlier, he's had like gospel songs. So he was on everybody. He was featured on like everybody's. He went and did gospel for a little bit, came back to R&B. Like, he has so many songs out. It's kind of hard to avoid it. But just think, though, if you were the family member of somebody who was a victim of his, an alleged victim of his, how would you feel about that? Would you be like, okay, they just forget about the fact that he's done this to my family member? I don't know. I don't think some people, if they were like directly affected by it, if they would be able to excuse that fact. So I don't know, but Rajan said he still listens. So we'll see. But we'll see how the trial goes with the attorneys. And they have a tall order to fill. Greenberg feels like they're not pulling their work, but I feel that they have quite a bit of work. They got some acrobatics to do to represent him in this case. Like, dang. But if he has a dream team like OJ Simpson, I personally think OJ Simpson did it and he got off. So if he has a dream team like OJ Simpson and can convince a jury that he didn't do what they accused him of doing, then he may be free. And hopefully he doesn't do foolish things that OJ Simpson did after he was freed. But we shall see. But thanks, guys, for tuning in for a quick check-in about TXC Gets Legal. And we're going to do another video, I think, soon on the topic. We do law school. We did veterans law. Tracy might do some employment law. So I appreciate all our viewers, and we'll see you in the next video.